Morning. How are you guys going?
Welcome to big school as an independent.
Oh my goodness, very exciting.
Today's first day back here in Parliament as an independent senator for Western Australia.
We've got dodgy pens. Who's in charge of pens in this new gig?
It's quite a lot for me to take in. It's like running your own small business when you have to set up your own website, recruit your own team, make your own policy positions on matters.
You need to have a look at this NDIS.
Yes. I feel a bit naive about how politics works, and I may have come into politics with being overly ambitious and optimistic, and, you know, soon that was crushed really fast.
I don't think the Labor Party are too fond of the whole situation that's happened. But they have to deal with the senator now.
She's the face of the new generation of politicians, the youngest senator in Parliament, and has created history by becoming the first hijab-wearing Muslim in Australian Parliament.
She had it all. She had youth on her side, she was bright, she was articulate, she was perfect.
And Fatima, that's what government looks like. And you know what? It looks like Australia. Diverse, strong, men and women, people of different backgrounds.
When Fatima Payman got into the Senate, this was a big moment for Labor, but there was an element of surprise there, and she was an unknown factor.
The death toll in Gaza has passed 20,000 Palestinians, nearly half of them children.
I was stuck between a rock and a hard place. It felt like my own party is just treating me as, you need to look like you, but sound like us. I was so conflicted. I have to toe a particular line that doesn't sit with my conscience and my values.
I ask our Prime Minister and our fellow parliamentarians, how many lives need to be lost before we say enough?
It's not often that your wife is in a public fistfight with the Prime Minister. It was a lot.
I know that she was struggling. I was a bit disappointed that despite every effort to reach out to her, she decided to take the action that she took.
Now to some news just in. Labor Senator Fatima Payman has crossed the floor.
The senator broke the rules, but gee, she's put the Prime Minister in a tricky position.
It's really hard to underestimate just what's at stake in a moment like that.
Thank you for being here today.
Good save, well done. If I'm not in Canberra, I try to make it every Wednesday night. This is my little escape from the crazy day-to-day. I can just, you know, blend in. I never thought I would marry a white guy. Amazing shock.
When she started to speak out, I had a conflict between my work as a state Labor staffer and supporting my wife.
Sometimes I'm like, how do you put up with my craziness? Like, I bet he didn't think he would end up in a marriage like this.
There was a conflict in me of, well, this is the best way to do it, is to advocate from within and just toe the line. And we had arguments about it.
I might be smelly.
That's okay.
And we'd only been married for 4 months. It creates an unbelievable amount of tension.
Ibrahim, here's some salad, Mummy. We got married 18th of February this year, and I've always just grown up with family, so for me it was, you know, quite easy to just request him to move in.
But who's the best boxer?
Me.
Living with the Paymans is very different to what it's like living with my family. It's been an adjustment, but I've loved it.
Fatima's life in Canberra is quite depressing.
Sometimes she keep calling me, Mom, I miss your rice. I miss your food, Mom.
I was born in Kabul in Afghanistan. I was the first child of the first son in the family, so it was a big deal.
This is a good photo.
Please.
So this is when I was just born. That's me. That's Mum
And that's when
Dad.
Mum and Dad were having the best life.
They were.
Yeah.
Afghanistan was a beautiful place. We're talking 1995, 1996. But then the Taliban took over.
Because of my grandfather's involvement in politics, we were in danger, so we had to flee. So the whole family, we ran away to Pakistan.
Where is this?
Kitchen.
But where?
Pakistan.
Pakistan, yeah. We was cooking together. We had very, very bad days in Pakistan. And I said to my husband, he has to go to Australia by boat. At least we has to have like better future for my kids over there. And then he left.
We were living in Pakistan for about 3 to 4 years before Dad sponsored us over to join him here in Australia.
Oh, this is when we first came to Australia. Dad was working as a security guard. Fatima was like my parents' best friend, really, in a country where they didn't know the language. The eldest child is seen to be the one that carries the most responsibility.
I was the first head girl at Australian Islamic College, and I took my role very seriously. Didn't have a great reputation amongst my peers. They all, referred to me as the snitch. I was a bit of a loner, but it's okay. I had plenty of teachers to keep me company.
So the workforce profile report was sort of telling us what we already knew.
I think looking different and being made to feel different, you kind of grow up with that unspoken truth of you do have to carry yourself with a high standard. And I'm a walking representation of my faith. Like, I literally not only wear my emotions and my faith on my sleeve, but literally on my head.
75% of the workforce.
My husband was a politics person. He really liked politics in his life, always. Always it was his dream, one of his kids become a politician.
But then at such a tender age of 47, he's got cancer. And a cancer that won't spare him extra years. Dad's passing instilled in me the sense of urgency. Fatima, wake up. You may be 22, 23, but you might not have the time that you think you do. Hello. And so for me, it was almost immediately just thrusting myself into volunteering.
I'll just get supplies. How about that? Yeah, I'm your supply girl.
Yeah, now. And in 2019, I got involved in Young Labour, and the grassroots activism, campaigning drew me to wanting to learn more. But Young Labour was very male-dominated. Very less colour in the room, if I can be so blunt.
When she became the president of Young Labour, she really transformed who Young Labour is. I saw the demographic of Young Labour change.
It's okay. Do you remember this?
I was always passionate about politics.
It went well.
It did.
I got involved with the Labor Party just after the state election in 2017. And I had contact with Fatima for the first time through email.
Jacob was asking, are you able to help us door knock for the election campaign? And I'm just wondering, who's this guy? And the nerve to just call me up and say, do you want to volunteer? Like, I've got my own work to do.
We had such a different relationship at the time.
But Jacob had this enthusiasm, this almost contagious energy.
Because we were so excited.
I do remember thinking, oh, she's kind of cute. She seems fun.
Oh, stop.
In 2021, I started working at United Workers Union, and I was tapped on the shoulder by my then union boss to run as number 3 on the Senate ticket. And I was like, are you sure? And he was like, don't worry. Labor hasn't won that seat since 1984. And I'm like, that's before I was born. Phew, great.
For the 2022 federal election, I was made her campaign manager. It was just a team of 2. The Labor Party didn't give us anything, and rightfully so, because we weren't expected to win.
Gosh, the first time I actually get to see Penny Wong in flesh. Yeah, I was freaking out.
That's a fangirl face.
That is a fangirl face. Gosh, oh my God. I was such a little naive girl. My goodness.
We are really, really hoping that Fatima Payman is able to join us as a senator going forward. I want to work...
Usually with candidates, you can sort of pack a day from 9 to 5 and just hit something from 9 to 10, 10 to 11. But for you, it was, well, no, I can't do that because at 12:30 I need to pray.
Yeah.
Or then at 3:45 I need to pray. And so, yeah, I did have to learn, but wanted to learn about how I could move things around and make sure that they fit with the faith.
With Jacob, I felt like some of the traits that I admired in my dad, I could see reflected in him. But I made it a very clear point that I would like a Muslim partner.
The one state where there's been a shift across the spectrum is Western Australia. There's no doubt about what West Australians have voted at this stage.
On election night, when it felt like I was winning, it was almost hard to believe. I was like, no, this can't be happening.
Counting has concluded for the 6 WA Senate seats, with Labor's Fatima Payman picking up the final seat.
She was brought into the Senate on the strength of that Labor vote as a whole, rather than just the strength of her own brand, because she was relatively unknown.
When Fatima got elected, there was such joy within the party.
And now a very warm welcome to our 3rd Senator for Western Australia, which is very exciting. Please give a big shout out to Fatima Payman.
I believe that Fatima could have gone very, very far and achieved so much in this party, and I had always hoped that she would.
I remember Fatima was never really keen on getting married. She didn't want to be held down. She wanted to work towards her goals.
I was mostly in Canberra, and I felt like that absence made me reflect that I think there was something there with Jacob.
These are my Quran learning books, basically my Arabic. When I started exploring the Islamic faith, it was probably around the time that I was becoming Fatima's campaign manager. Yeah, there are a lot of parallels between how I was raised sort of as a Christian and then Islam, but a lot of it is just focused on family and good values and just do good things and good things will happen to you.
He'd approached me middle of last year and he was like, look, I've accepted the faith and I would like to ask for your hand in marriage. And I was overjoyed, firstly, because I was praying for this to happen. But I just remember being super excited, but also a bit nervous, like, how's Mum going to react? How are my siblings going to react?
And first time I said, no, it's impossible. We are Afghan, and he's Aussie boy. It's impossible. After when I find he's a Muslim guy, he's reverted to Islam, and then I said, no, I think he's the right person for her.
He got down on his
got down on one knee
and proposed it
in front of everyone,
which was quite shocking to
yeah.
be honest.
You know, it's not something normal in our culture, but it was so cute. I think that was genuinely really a sweet gesture.
Alhamdulillah, I'm very happy now. He's very good boy, and basically he's Afghan boy now.
Good evening, Jeremy Fernandez.
During Fatima's first year in Parliament, she wasn't high profile. October 7 changed all that.
Israel and Gaza are at war. Palestinian gunmen have crossed into Israel.
October 7th was a tragic day. The perpetrators should be condemned, and it's an atrocity that needs to be called out.
The large-scale surprise attack by Gaza militants has left at least 250 Israelis dead.
And then within a few hours, you know, the main monuments around the country are lit up with the Israeli flag colours. And then the onslaught of Gaza starts.
Israel vowed retribution and the retaliation was swift.
The federal government officially backs a two-state solution. That's left some within the Palestinian community questioning why they aren't receiving the same show of solidarity for the lives lost in Gaza.
The outrage was reverberating throughout. Community members, people I'd grown up with were messaging me and saying, "What's your government doing?"
Labour Party members were very critical of the government. We were very dissatisfied with the responses that we were receiving. We wanted a permanent ceasefire. We wanted sanctions.
A two-state solution is...
Support for a two-state solution.
Only come with a two-state solution.
Well, how can we advocate for a two-state solution when one of those two states isn't even recognised by the country? I was hearing from people that were leaving the party over our stance on Gaza, and it just felt like more needed to be done. I remember feeling really scared and talking to Jacob and saying, like, where's this gonna go and what kind of role am I gonna play in this?
An Israeli airstrike has killed 4 international aid workers, including an Australian.
When Zombie Frankham was killed, I was like, this has got to be our turning point as Australia stands. I called the foreign minister and I said, I would like to say that, you know, I call on the government to either apply sanctions or pause trade. And the response I got was, no, we can't, because you're going to put us in a precarious position. You're going to corner us.
When Fatima started taking the steps to speak out, I wanted to support my wife. But sometimes I'd have to say to her, like, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to put my boss in a bad situation. We spoke about it and we had arguments about it. I was definitely in the, I guess you'd call it the camp of raise your voice within caucus.
I had senior colleagues tell me, if you don't want anything to be leaked, don't bring it up in caucus. And so I was directly speaking with the foreign minister. I would literally cry and say, what do I do? And the foreign minister would acknowledge the suffering and then say that, you know, Australia is a small fish in a big pond. We don't really have power over the Israeli government. But my intention was never for us as the Labour Party to go into Israel and tell Netanyahu to drop his guns. It's how do we maintain the social cohesion amongst our communities, because they were just so disappointed with the party.
We would go to the mosque just as regular members of the community to go and pray, and people would just turn their backs, or everyone would just give you stares from a distance, and it felt like I was a stranger to my own community.
People were questioning whether I'm a real, true Muslim because I'm not doing enough.
I would wake up in the middle of the night and you would be scrolling on your phone, reading nasty messages from people that were upset that you weren't speaking out. And that was every day. It was every single day for 7 months.
My health was deteriorating. I felt like I was in this depressive mode.
There was a point where maybe in a week period, we took her to the hospital 2 or 3 times for just intense migraines that were causing her almost to pass out and vomit.
This is so messed up.
There was an incredible amount of empathy and compassion for Fatima's position. I am in that same position. Ed Husick is in that same position. This is our community, our people. But being in the caucus, being in the government, is how you make change.
Through the early months of 2024, the pressure over policy on Gaza really built. The student encampments were happening across the country.
There were some very chilly early mornings, and so I was like, you know what? I'm going to take breakfast and some hot Afghan tea to these students because I feel for them. I hadn't told anyone because I didn't want this to be a photo op.
The students weren't interested in the tea, they weren't interested in the croissants. They were so angry. What power do you really have? Are you willing to call it a genocide? And are you willing to lose your job over this?
A few hours later, I get a call from a WA federal colleague, and she was basically like, you know, did you get clearance to attend this encampment? Did you get lines on what to say, what not to say?
I don't know that I called her. I might have messaged her. Yeah, I was surprised that she went without telling anyone. Nobody knew. And I think that it's a courtesy, right? It's a courtesy to your colleagues to let them know. Yeah, when people say caucus solidarity, it's not just that you shut up and do whatever the caucus wants, right? It's not even that. It is a mutual respect among us all.
When I decided to no longer stay quiet, I knew that it was the right thing to do. I read out my statement, calling on the government to do more.
My conscience has been uneasy for far too long. And I must call this out for what it is. This is a genocide. And we need to stop pretending otherwise.
Israel insists it's acting within international law and has strenuously denied allegations of genocide.
What should Albanese do with that senator?
He needs to ask her to apologise and retract or resign.
Is it appropriate for a member of your government to use the word genocide?
Well, it's not the word I would use.
Once you do something like that in the Labor Party, that is the beginning of the end.
The reaction from my colleagues, they came up to me and told me that they felt betrayed.
Every member of the caucus elected to Parliament commits to abide by the decisions of that caucus, even if they're in the minority on a vote by that caucus. That's what solidarity means, and it's fundamental to the way the party works.
Her staff were leaving, caucus was isolating her, she's getting booted from group chats. In the end, I had to make a choice, and it wasn't a hard choice. I love my wife and I support my wife.
Tuesday, 25th of June, was the day when the Greens put up the motion, calling on the Senate to recognise the state of Palestine. The day prior, I was sat by a few colleagues who were like, how are you going to vote? And I said, I haven't made up my mind. And they were like, well, we're thinking of pairing you out. And that means, you know, you don't need to be in the chamber when this vote's happening. And then I remember getting a message from the whip saying, we've paired you out from this time to this time. I reflected on it and I thought, what would happen if I just rocked up to the chamber?
Division required, ring the bells for 1 minute.
I looked at David Pocock and I was like, I think I'm going to cross. And he was like, do you want me to walk with you? That's when I just got up and crossed the floor, knowing that this could be the end of my career as a member of the Labor Party.
Senator Payman wasn't born the last time a Labor senator crossed the floor. Tonight she's made history, but it's her future in the party that is now unclear.
Crossing the floor, it's a big move because it's seen as an act of disloyalty and it's seen as a rejection of the major party that brought you to Parliament.
I was not elected as a token representative of diversity. I was elected to serve the people of Western Australia and uphold the values instilled in me by my late father.
I was called into the Prime Minister's office. He had told me I would be suspended from attending the caucus the following week.
The Prime Minister has dealt with this matter with great restraint on this occasion. Caucus solidarity matters to us, and our expectation is Senator Payman will abide by caucus decisions.
Look, I've made my position clear to Senator Payman.
He had told me that I need to reflect on whether I want to be a team player and toe the line.
She said to me, I can't back down now. I need to keep going. And so I drove her to Insiders because there's nobody else in the team that's going to do it.
I felt like if they were going to expel me and they're already phasing me out, then there's no point in me seeking permission to do Insiders.
If the same motion on recognising the state of Palestine was to be brought forward tomorrow, I would cross the floor.
You would cross the floor again?
Yes.
It then spiralled down real fast. I got a call from the Prime Minister's office. You've got to be at the lodge at 2.
We went to Canberra thinking it was a nice holiday, and we
lovely.
just got swallowed up by it all.
And she said, we just have to make a stop at the lodge. I'll go in, you wait in the car.
It didn't feel like 45 minutes.
Yeah, it felt like 4.5 hours.
Yeah,
4 hours sitting in the car.
I felt like a little student in trouble and taken by the teacher to the headmaster's office for a telling off. You know, and it was a stern conversation.
I get out, and then all of a sudden there's like, Senator Payman, Senator Payman. What is this, an ambush?
Have you been expelled, Dave?
No.
You haven't been?
You got in the car and you said indefinitely suspended. Wow.
I do know what that
And then the
meant.
journos there and we drove off. I thought she was going to come out and say I've been expelled. But an indefinite suspension was almost worse. It's purgatory.
Just what Fatima Payman does next is unclear.
News she is courting new political advisors and Muslim community groups is fueling speculation she may be about to cut ties with Labor.
Am I going to resign? Am I going to give the seat back to Labor? Am I going to come out and say, no, I'm going to toe the line from now on? Like, what do you do? It was overwhelming.
My family did not flee from a war-torn country to come here as refugees, for me to remain silent when I see atrocities inflicted on innocent people. I'm torn, deeply torn. With a heavy heart, but a clear conscience, I announce my resignation from the Australian Labor Party. I will sit on the crossbench to represent Western Australia.
As a mother, I'm really proud of her. She did something big for humanity.
In the end, I had to resign by choice, and I just said I can't keep these two worlds apart. But I'm proud of what I did, and I don't regret it at all.
There's certainly been some damage to Labor because there's an entire community now that is disaffected with Labor over its stance on the Middle East. And it's become a flashpoint that highlights a longer-term question about caucus loyalty, party loyalty on all sides, really.
We're so proud of you.
I feel like the Labor Party really needs to review their rules because I don't think they're ready to have diversity with a voice.
I disagree. It has been my experience that not only am I given a seat at the table, I am also given a voice.
It's day one back here in Canberra. I've caught the red eye, so I'm a bit tired.
Coming back as an independent senator, I don't know what to expect in terms of how my former colleagues are going to treat me. You know, I'm not here to play games or be obstructive.
You've come from a big corporation, you're now self-employed.
Her first big call is a controversial one. She's hired Glenn Drury as her Chief of Staff. Now, Glenn Drury is no friend of Labor. They'll be deeply suspicious of his motives and his agenda, and I think it will widen the gulf between Labor and Senator Payman.
2-minute statements for today, Wednesday, Thursday, all locked in.
Glenn has previous experience with independent senators and minor party senators, so he knows what he's doing.
Well, my plans are to work with the Senator. I mean, I don't have any plans per se that are Glenn Drury's plans.
Are there plans to form a party?
It's certainly a discussion we need to have. Yes, it's a discussion we must have.
I do not have any plans on forming a party, but I will not be joining the Greens, and nor will I be forming a Muslim-only party.
Something I've learned about politics is you never commit definitively to anything because it will come around and bite you in the backside.